Yeah, I'm good. First of all, thanks very much for inviting me. Sami invited me to be involved with his scientific advisory board with MIRMI. It's been delightful to see what's happening here and get a sense of what kind of stuff's happening in the Institute, which I think is broad enough that you can get a sense of where the field is going from watching where Munich is going. I'm delighted to be here today, and I'm especially delighted to give the talk called Summary, because nobody likes to talk about their own research after all the research that you saw today, which was spectacular. I have a successful career path. I know there are a lot of students in the audience, so I'm going to give you a little bit of advice as well as a summary. My career path is do a good job explaining work other people did. And so I'm going to do more of that now. If you look at the day, right, it's very nice. It's 4 very clean sessions. And I think there must be probably 8 people in the room that endured all 4 of these sessions. And it's a clean taxonomy. But if you look at the speakers, it's not clean at all. Right? It's quite intertangled, and the concepts that we heard about during the day, they bounced around quite a lot. And so what I thought I would do at the beginning is just try and give you my own taxonomy of the kinds of ideas that we saw as kind of an organizational structure for the day when you look back, rather than just 16 talks and how do I put these all together. And also, that's where you are now. So you're almost at the very end. If you could just bear 10 more minutes. The first theme of the day for me was robot bodies. Right? There were quite a few talks that talked about or that dealt with issues related to the mechanical devices that were involved. And it was interesting to me that the spectrum of mechanical devices ranged from very simple mechanisms that you might use, and I don't mean to say simple in any kind of pejorative sense, but in the kind of elegance and designated purpose to be served of the devices. In the medical robotics world, for example, the devices are structurally fairly simple, but often mathematically difficult to model, all the way to very complicated machines. You saw humanoid robots, you saw bipeds, you saw quadrupeds. It's a whole spectrum of topologies of machinery that people are working on, but then also a spectrum of materials that go into the machines, right? So if you happened to be here at 9:30 a.m., you saw the soft robots talk, and you saw that you don't have to have a bunch of metal wires and gears to make robots that do very cool things. Second theme of the day, robot brains. An awful lot of what happened today was aimed at the algorithmic side of things. And I've broken out 3 things that seem to really kind of capture where the field is focusing its interest these days. There's a lot of work on learning. There were talks today that were devoted entirely to learning. There were other talks that had learning folded in. But learning is becoming increasingly ubiquitous in robots. Don't be somebody who just goes out, this is for the youngsters in the room, don't be somebody who just goes out, pulls machine learning algorithms off the shelf and applies them to big data and writes a paper, right? This is not a way to anything other than a very large salary at a company. But it's not a good way to enter fulfillment or contributions to the world. So think more deeply than that. Perception remains a problem, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Even though we saw some impressive results in the field of perception, particularly vision, I think, and the work that's being done with LiDAR today. And I'm very happy that Wolfram put probabilistic reasoning back on the map, so I'm going to keep it here as well. And then the last thing, this is fairly new, relative to the history of robotics, the notion of communities being important. And the way we saw communities in the last 25 hours or however long this session has lasted, we saw communities that involved multiple robots doing things together, sometimes heterogeneous teams. We saw communities that involved humans and robots doing things together, sometimes very small communities. I think the work that Giorgio talked about, where you have a teacher and a student and a robot, is really a small community working together to achieve some kind of goal. There has always been, as long as we've had computing, the desire to have distributed computing systems that are working together to solve problems. But we've never really seen that manifest itself in the robotics world the way we have in the last 10 years, and we've never seen people be so integrally involved as we have in the last 10 years, so much so that we're not just talking about planning algorithms and motion planning algorithms, we're talking now about things like trust. Should I even trust the robots that I'm collaborating with? And believe me, for my entire career, this was never a question because the answer was just no. You should not trust the robots. You should never trust the robots. You shouldn't be in the room with the robot. And now technology and people's disposition toward technology has changed really in a very radical way, right? The way people trust technology to solve problems for them, from people who sleep in their Teslas just until the moment of impact, expect more and more of this to be happening as robots find their way more and more into the world. And of course, human interaction, both at the social scale and at the physical scale, more about that later as well. I saw today, in terms of applications, two application areas that were in multiple talks. And the first one is logistics, and particularly if you construe the idea of logistics broadly enough, right? Just the idea of getting goods from a source to a destination. You can think of that in global terms. I'd like to get something from a factory in some part of China to my living room in Atlanta, or you can think of it as moving things around in a smaller space, right? This includes, for example, self-driving cars, right? So you can think of that as part of the logistics chain, if you like, or the supply chain. And here are some problems that we don't know how to solve, or that we're not necessarily solving in their full generality in very robust ways relative to this set of problems that present themselves in the logistic world. So there's still plenty of fundamental work to be done here, and I encourage you to think about these things and to think about them in non-traditional ways, right? There were 2 or 3 times today when I heard people say things like, and I took that problem, or so-and-so took this problem, and turned it into a geometry problem. Right? And that's cool. That has a history going back at least to the days people took the physics of pushing and turned it into geometry problems, long before epiphanies that brought people into the logistics world. So thinking in non-traditional ways about traditional problems and these kinds of problems, I think there's a lot of future still left there. The second application area is healthcare. Healthcare ranges from robots that are going to do invasive surgeries. We saw the application of physical rehabilitation, for example, for stroke victims today. There's a whole logistics of healthcare that involves delivering things to people that are infirmed, medicines in hospitals and so forth. And again, you have a bunch of unsolved fundamental robotics problems that are there, right, to be taken advantage of for young people starting their careers. What's missing? There's a bunch of stuff that's missing. One thing that we didn't know was missing 20 years ago is infrastructure, because 20 years ago, my robot worked in my lab, and it had all the infrastructure you needed. It had one camera and one robot and one computer and one grad student. Now, it's different, right? Robots operating in the world confront a situation that's dynamic, unpredictable, uncertain, and sometimes adversarial. To the extent that you can engineer an infrastructure to support the robots, you can make their lives easier, and you can make, therefore, your lives safer and better. Right? So that infrastructure ranges from communication. We saw talks today about, I think, 7 or 8G, whatever the next G is that's going to allow time travel. We saw talks about of self-driving cars, which would benefit enormously from infrastructure on the highways. People that are working on logistics operations in warehouses and factories quite often build infrastructure into the factories to support what's happening there. So roboticists thinking not just about the robot, but thinking about the environment in which the operation of the robot will occur and how to tailor that environment to make the robotics problems easier. There's a lot of money to be made doing that sort of thing as well. Perception, so computer vision, it's spectacular, right? You can see now computer vision systems doing things that nobody thought they would be doing in the year 2010 even. But there are a lot of open problems in computer vision. In particular, when you start trying to couple the perception to the action, we don't know how to do that very well yet. We saw Jen's talking a little bit about what I consider to be the early work in the field. I don't know, maybe you consider this to be older, but I think of you still as a young guy doing early work in the field. Right? We don't know how to do this yet, and I'm certain that 10 years from now we'll be doing it very differently. But this idea that somehow the perception affects the action, and the action then affects the perception, and there's a feedback loop to be somehow exploited or managed or dealt with is something that as a community we're still grappling with. And anytime the world is dynamic, unpredictable, or uncertainty, perception systems start to struggle. We saw somebody talk earlier today about the fact that it's hard to get enough data. That's one of the 4 impediments to putting AI out in real-world systems. And indeed, this is something that perception systems operating in the real world face, because you can't just download 1 billion images from your Google image drive, right? And then lastly, manipulation, which is still an open problem as far as I'm concerned, even though there are like super clever grippers now solving various instantiations of the manipulation problem. Here are my parting observations, and then I'm going to invite Sami, who I hope is in the room somewhere. Oh, he's very close. Normally I feel you when you're that close. I don't know how
I'm sneaky.
He's very sneaky now. Now that he's a director of an institute, he's become stealthy. Here are my parting observations. It's a good time to be a roboticist. If you came to the room wondering whether this is the field for you, the answer should be yes, right? This is really the peak of fun and profitable and adventurous times in robotics in my lifetime. And I was born in the year of the first robot patent, which means my lifetime and the lifetime of robotics, they are the same, right? So this is the peak time to be in robotics. Here's why, right? There's a confluence of breakthroughs in just a bunch of technology areas all happening at the same time that enable things in the robotics world that wouldn't be able to happen otherwise, right? We are consumers, roboticists, of technologies that are the constituents of what we do. And when those technologies advance, we advance. And when they all advance at the same time, miraculous things happen in our discipline. Robots are more useful. That's nice. This is surprising to me. We have not yet seen catastrophic failures in society because of the introduction of robotics, right? We don't see mass unemployment because robots are taking all the jobs, right? So we're still living in a period where society doesn't hate us for what we're doing. A lot of society is beginning to be afraid, right? And part of that's because of the hype in irresponsible journals, and not journals, but by irresponsible journalists, and by also irresponsible AI scientists. There's some trepidation about what we might be doing, but we haven't really done much damage yet, right? So we still enjoy some goodwill out in the world as roboticists, and this is something we should take care to protect, right? The fellow from Bosch talked about this, and this is exactly something that if we don't take care of, we will pay a price down the road. There's an ecosystem of robotics startups, which was not the case before because starting a robotics company is expensive, right? But now these things are happening, and not only are they happening with companies that are immediately being consumed by very large companies just so they'll have the technology. Now we have startup companies that are becoming successful and standing on their own and moving out to do things that previously we didn't imagine they would do. Companies that were never in the business of robotics are now in the business of robotics, and there are a number of big names that are conspicuous there. And last, sentient robots are not coming anytime soon. I live in the golden age of robotics. Robotics are getting better and better as I'm getting older and older. I expect to die in the cradling bosom of a friendly robot comforting me as I pass on to the next place. Many of you will die at the hand of a malevolent robot. Only the young ones. So it's a golden age. Your job is to keep the golden age going on in perpetuity, not to let the malevolent age of robots descend upon us. I'm going to stop there. Sami, I will now let you take charge.
So for taking charge means to keep Seth with me and don't let him sit down. And I would like to invite also Stefan with us, who chaired the recent session, to kind of take the chance to have Seth with us and also you guys to kind of wrap up a little bit today all together after this amazing kind of, I mean, you did all the conclusions already to some extent, but we thought that it would be wonderful if we can ask you one or two, a little bit more stealthy questions, as you said, right? So I actually looked at what you're doing as an institute director, so I copied the stealth mode from Seth. And now I think it would be great if we move in the middle so that people can actually hear us and see us at the same time. And I would like to invite Stefan to kind of interrogate you.
Okay, I'm being put on the spot a little bit here, but there's certainly always questions left. You have asked and answered a lot, of course. And I think obviously also for everyone else to still ask some questions now. So one that I actually had is, I think that you mentioned it already, the role of infrastructure, I think, has really played out well when it comes to warehouses. You can control the environment somewhat, and this is what I think has really made real-world progress. So what do you think do we take from this when it comes to more, or less constrained applications like autonomous driving? Do you expect that we are going to go a way where actually we'll have to augment our infrastructure in order to make progress? Or do you think we are going to kind of keep that rather difficult route, I would say, of trying to just deal with any environment as it is, even if it is driving through Naples?
So I have an opinion about this that maybe people will not share, and that would be fun for me if some of you really disagreed from a distance. I think that we as roboticists are in the business of creating technologies, and we aren't the right people to decide anything about the safety or the social goodness of those technologies. That instead we should defer to people who do this for a living. And sometimes that's politicians, and sometimes that's sociologists, and sometimes it's people who have studied other kinds of things. And in the same way, I feel like society needs to take control of its own destiny and instrument the world appropriately if society wants to have technology ubiquitously placed in the world. So if the state of Georgia wants to have self-driving cars and not have a lot of people die, I live in the state of Georgia, then the politicians of the state of Georgia should step up and be willing to commit to infrastructure along Georgia highways. And that infrastructure should include at least communications between the cars and the traffic signals and some sort of monitoring mechanisms to decide where traffic is fluid and where problems have happened. And I think that's not just for traffic. I think there are a variety of areas in which society needs to take control of what it is that we're doing and impose regulation and spend money, right? Not just regulate us, but spend money to build the supporting infrastructure, to develop the standards, to make everything work in a uniform, societally appropriate way.
So that's a very interesting take, I think. It also means, as I understand you correctly, it's a little bit of resignation perhaps as well, that we actually need infrastructure in order to achieve the safety that perhaps is needed. Or do you think it's just a matter of time until we actually get to the same level of safety as without any augmented infrastructure?
To the extent that infrastructure improves safety, you will never have better safety without infrastructure. Okay. I would rather have this completely smart self-driving car in an instrumented world than in a non-instrumented world.
Okay, anyone disagreeing or agreeing with that?
That's actually an awesome answer to the question. I never thought about that.
Wolfram, you could argue.
I could, yes. It's fine.
I saw that. There are two questions, right? I think if I see Edward, please.
I think the statement that said that today's infrastructures were made for humans said it very clearly, that these were not made for machines, and we may need infrastructures for machines. And the place where we do have that is factories. That means in factories, we very clearly decided we can fully automated have a body shop for a car factory. There is not a human being. There are lots of robots, but they're all in cages. Now we decide we have robots and people in the same place, so we will change our infrastructure. And in the factory, we have all of this under control. We always did it. And we very consciously changed that infrastructure as soon as we have moving robots. as soon as we have cobots and people next to each other. So I expect this in other places just as well.
Yeah, excellent.
I think it was almost a question. Yeah.
It was also agreement, I think, with what we just said.
It was, in a way, agreement, yes.
Absolutely.
Maybe related to your earlier point that it should be about society deciding basically its own destiny when it comes to adopting robots and politicians as well. So what should then be our roles as roboticists in informing society?
I think our role as roboticists is to tell the world the truth about what we're doing, and not to overhype what we're doing, and not also to hide the power of what we're doing. If we're not honest about what we're doing, society won't believe us anymore. And I think the good scientists in this room who think, well, you know, we're scientists, we don't intervene in politics, I think we should change. I think we have to start speaking very loudly to the world about what's happening in our technology, so that the politicians won't be presented with only the side of the story told by editors who want clicks on their web pages. Right? There's a sensationalist euphoria sweeping through journalism about robots, at the same time that there's a rising fear sweeping through the public about robots. And we're not doing enough about that in terms of telling the truth about robots. That's what I think.
Yeah, fantastic.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think this was a very important statement for all of us as a community. So I really thank you very much for pointing this out.
I wanted to say this to the minister, but he's gone.
Wait, we'll call him. Yeah, but I think you see that this is kind of really, I mean, exactly what we are trying to achieve also with platforms like that, to bring us as roboticists, as engineers, technologists, and researchers together with people from industry, politics, not only for being supportive, but also to drive the things we want to do. So this brings me maybe to, if I may, to the last question, if you still have a minute to bear with us. Okay, it's okay? Yeah. So you know, it's a very selfish question in a way, because you gave all the big answers now, or the big kind of hints towards what we should do as a community. But what do you think, you know, now as also the head of our scientific advisory board, the Munich ecosystem, what is important for us to do next, right? I mean, what can we, you know, if you want to tell us something that we should really follow in order to nurture the environment, nurture the ecosystem, and really try to, you know, make it let's say a hotspot for, you know, responsible robotics, where we really think about, you know, how do we impact the world. So what is it that you want to tell us?
I don't presume to tell you. I think it's important that robotics institutes begin to include non-roboticists in a serious way, not in a token for show kind of way, where we start to really, you know, spend money on people that think about policy, and let those people think independently about policy, rather than use those people to support what we wanted to do anyway by writing down policy statements that are supportive of our agendas. So like, independent policy thinking people, both from economics as well as the sociological sphere, I think we should have those people integrally involved. And you're already inviting politicians. I haven't seen you without a politician in the last 24 hours. So I think this part of the game, I think you already have some idea how to play.
I'm sorry, what was this? Yeah, wonderful. I think we have a fantastic agenda then in front of us. Thanks so much, Seth, for you know, not only supporting, but also being a very blunt and outspoken advisor, right, and mentor on that. So I would like to kind of thank you so much for doing the concluding remarks. I would like to thank Stefan for, you know, being a little bit of good question oracle, and thanks so much for being with us. Thanks everybody for kind of bearing with us for the last few minutes. I still have a few things to say, and I would like to say, first of all, let's thank Seth for being a wonderful concluding remark for the summit itself, and then I just want to give you a few notes on what's coming next. Thanks so much, Seth.
Thanks, Sami.
Okay, I think this one goes away. So I'm just opening my smartphone because there's so many people I would like to thank. And we're coming to an end for the Hightech-Summit. And I would like to just say that this has been an amazing day. It's been amazing people with us. I think great talks. I just hear that people were mind blown by the different inspirations they got. Unfortunately, I was going back and forth between here and the politics, exactly as Seth was saying. But I think it's worth it. I think it's really worth it that we have a platform where the politics, the industry, and we as scientists can really work together to form the future of robotics, of a maybe robotized society in the future, and hopefully it's a responsible society. So I would like to thank, first of all and foremost, all the wonderful speakers for being with us today, coming from all over the world and giving us the honor of really being part of that. And yeah, I would like to say it's amazing to see the progress, especially also to see people again in reality and be able to talk to you, be able to exchange with you, and let's build something interesting here together. And I would like to say this is only the beginning. So this Hightech-Summit has been the first time in reality. It's part of the Munich Eye platform, but it's also with many kind of other events taking place that are, I think, complementing what we have seen today. So I would like to, first of all, share a few impressions, just a few ones, so that you can see what we have been up to all together, and also there's still more to come. If we could change to the next. Oh wait, I have a clicker. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, so I think we have seen that if you work on bring together people from all over the world, then actually you're seeing. We had a wonderful evening yesterday. I really would like to say thanks again to the Bavarian State Chancellery, the Staatskanzlei, to enable us this extreme honor so that we as a community are being welcomed here in Bavaria. So it's been an amazing day yesterday night. So I would like to point out that this has only been possible because you were coming here, because you really show that this field is progressing. And yeah, all together we were having a wonderful evening. Thanks again for doing this. Today we had our Minister President here, Markus Söder. He, just for the ones who did not or could not attend yet because we had some problems in getting people here, he was actually telling a lot about this high-tech agenda he has been pulling off, and also the founding of the new university, Technical University of Nuremberg, where Wolfram has now been appointed to. And he has been reporting about the almost 3 billion investment that Bavaria, the small state of Bavaria, is really putting into robotics, AI. And I think I was at least quite impressed of him being so outspoken in the way that he supports what we do here. So this is wonderful for us as a community, but it's also wonderful to see that he really is fascinated by robotics, and he takes these things really serious, not only in the sense that we want to kind of bring the brightest people here, but in particular to really create an ecosystem and also a hotspot in which industry and real-world products can impact our lives. So this is something that I would like to also point again and really make sure that this kind of thing is not normal, at least for us. So we are really, really happy to have this support, and I think this is a great result of this first real-world Munich Eye and the Hightech-Summit itself. So then I guess we had our wonderful summit. So I really would like to say thanks to all of you. It has been the first time. And by the way, because when we went down with the Minister President, there was so much media that the Messe München, that by the way is supporting this entire summit and also the entire Munich Eye by itself, and allowing us the AI Society, we're going to visit in a second, we decided now that this Hightech-Summit next time will be exactly where we will go next. So within the fair itself, so that we're going to have a full conference just next to the robots, really building this vibrant ecosystem, which is great news. So, and this has also only been possible because I think we had a wonderful yesterday and a wonderful today. Yeah, and last but not least, obviously we had fantastic talks. I would like just to really also thank the people not only from academia and science, but also from industry. I think it was extremely insightful to see all these different perspectives. I would like to say also thank you to all the great colleagues here in Munich and around to really support that. I think it's been a tremendous team effort of many of the robotics fellows and AI fellows here around. And yeah, I think last but not least, I just wanted to show you one or two other things that have been super interesting the last days. So yesterday we had our Robothon, so a challenge in which teams from all over the world were participating, up to, I think, New Zealand was the farthest. Antarctica was missing, but New Zealand was in there. And I would like to say thanks also to the sponsors of Munich I, and the way that among Siemens and Huawei and others have really made this possible, that we can gather together around a challenge that is industrially meaningful and also has pulled a lot of new talents to Munich. And yeah, I think shows how robotics can impact. The challenge was, by the way, e-waste sorting and recycling, so really things that societally are meaningful and with robotics can have an impact. Last but not least, just an impression of where we're going now soon. So this is the iSpace for the ones who have not been there yet. So the AI Society is another element of Munich I. So we're going to have a large demo tour with all of you. So I invite everybody to come with us now to go to the Automatica fair. And there has been a huge gathering of people. So it's really a vibrant place for, I think, all of robotics. It's not just a standard industrial fair, but it really shows now really what is all going on also in the Munich ecosystem. So I invite all of you to have a vibrant interaction with the startups, with the young people, with the companies, with the young technological thinkers around there. And I think this is a wonderful possibility to also then, after the tour, come together and have a great time and drink one or two Munich or Bavarian beers, have maybe a little bit of chats, and continue the discussions that we all had. I would like to kind of not only thank you as the speakers and you as the audience, but also I would like to thank Messe München for enabling that, for allowing that, and really not only having an Automatica fair, but really a summit where we can all exchange our ideas and bring all together these wonderful people. So there have been all the supporters, all the ministers, all the politics, but in particular also the Munich I team. And I would like to kind of ask, I'm not sure whether Isabel is here. Is Isabel here? Yeah, Isabel is here. Yeah. So I would like to all kind of invite you to kind of thank Isabel, because she has been instrumental to pulling this off. I know many of you had interactions with her. I would like to say thank you to the technical team, but in particular, first of all, Isabel and Stefanie Götz. I'm not sure she's here, but not here. She's doing all the 1,000 other things. But thank you so much, Isabel, for doing this. Yeah, so tomorrow, just to give you a little bit of hint for tomorrow. So tomorrow there's going to be a panel as well, that we do not only have the AI Society, but there's also going to be a panel that shows you the high-tech agenda. So the different parts and elements of Bavaria are showing basically what's going on in Ingolstadt, in Würzburg, in Augsburg, and in Munich, and in Erlangen. So all the different hotspots that are kind of supported by this high-tech agenda. So in case you're interested in what's happening there, there's going to be a panel, I think, I just have to look it up, 2 to 3. And then also there's all kinds of pictures that might be interesting to you. So I invite you all to spend the day tomorrow, in case you're still around, see what's going on. I think it's a very cool program. Lots of interesting things that complement what we saw today. And since we are all almost hungry, I guess, I would like to conclude for the Hightech-Summit. It's been a great, great pleasure. And I would like to say thank you to all of you. I would like to also hint towards next year. So we will do the next Hightech-Summit already next year. So we will not only have it in 2 years. So Automatica actually, or Messe München, decided that they want to support this really regularly. And we will have it now probably as a yearly event, which is fantastic. And so I hope to see you again next year in June 27th to June 30th in 2023. Thanks for being with us. I hope you had fun. I would like to say, it's been an amazing time till now, and let's now come together, move towards AI Society. I think Isabel is going to make sure that we don't lose anyone. I always follow her if it's about organization. So let's gather and thanks so much for being here. Let's have some great evening.